जय कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन जमुना तीरा वनचारी जमुना तीरा वनचारी जयो राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जयो राधा गिरिधारी श्री राधे जय राधे जय राधे जय राधे जय श्री राधे जय गिरि गोवर्धन जय गिरि गोवर्धन जय जगन्नाथ जय बलदेव जय सुभद्रा जय गौरानिताय जय निताय गौर हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय गुरुदेव जय जय गुरुदेव निताई गौर प्रेमानंदी हरि हरि जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य श्री श्री अष्टोत्तर श्री श्रीमते इसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी शिल प्रभुपाद की जय. So once again, welcome everyone for this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam session. We'll begin with, please bless me so that I can do the readings and read the Srimad Bhagavatam as a nectar for your ears. We are reading from Srila Prabhupada, chapter 19. And am I to start from Bruce here, Mataji? Just confirming.
Yes, Mataji. Thank you.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Bruce. There wasn't anything superficial about him, nor was he ever contrived, trying to make some impression. He was just completely himself. In the Swami's room, there was no furniture, so we sat on the floor. And I found this to be very attractive and simple. Everything was so authentic about him. Uptown at another Swami's place, we had sat on big stuffed living room chairs, and the place had been lavishly furnished. But here was the downtown Swami wearing simple cloth robes. He had no business suit on. He wasn't covering up a business suit with those saffron robes. And he wasn't affected, and the other Swami was, as the other Swami was. So I found himself asking him if I could be his student, and he said yes. I was very happy because he was so different from the other Swami. With the Uptown Swami, I was wanting to become his student because I wanted to get something from him. I wanted to get knowledge. It was selfishly motivated, but here I was actually emotionally involved. I was feeling that I wanted to become the Swami's student. I actually wanted to give myself because I thought he was great and what he was giving was pure and pristine and wonderful. It was a soothing balm for the horrible city life. Uptown, I had felt like a stranger. On one occasion, our conversation turned to my previous trip to India in 1962, and I began talking about how much it meant to me, how much it moved me. I even mentioned that I had made a girlfriend there. So we got to talking about that, and I told him that I had her picture. I was carrying the girl's picture in my wallet, so Swamiji asked to see. I took the picture, and Swamiji looked at it and made a sour face and said, "Oh, she's not pretty. Girls in India are more beautiful than that." Hearing that from the Swami just killed any attachment I had for that girl. I felt ashamed that I had an interest in a girl that the Swami did not consider pretty. I don't think I ever looked at the photograph again, and certainly I never gave her another thought. Bruce was a newcomer and had only been to 1 week of meetings at the storefront. So no one had told him that the members of Ananda Ashram, Dr. Mishra's yoga retreat, had invited Swamiji and his followers for a day in the upstate countryside. Bruce had just arrived at the storefront one morning when he heard someone announce, "The Swami is leaving." And Prabhupada came out of the building and stepped into a car. In a fit of anxiety, Bruce thought that the Swami was leaving them for good, for India. No. Howard told him, "We're going to a yoga ashram in the country." But the other car had already left and there was no room in Swamiji's car. Just then, Steve showed up. He had expected the boys to come by his apartment to pick him up. They both had missed the ride. Bruce phoned a friend up in the Bronx and convinced him to drive them up to Ananda Ashram. When they got when they got to Bruce's friend's apartment, the had decided he didn't want to go. Finally, he lent Bruce his car, and Swamiji's two new followers set out for Ananda Ashram. By the time they arrived, Prabhupada and his group were already taking prasadam, sitting around the picnic table beneath the trees. Anand Ashram was a beautiful place with sloping hills and lots of trees and skies and green grass and a lake. The late newcomers came walking up to Swamiji, who was seated like the father of a family. At the head of the picnic table, Kate was serving from a big wok into the individual plates. When Prabhupada saw his two stragglers, he asked them to sit next to them. And Kate served them. Prabhupada took Steve's cup chapati and heaped it up with the amount of sugar and Steve munched on the bread and sugar while everyone laughed. Prabhupada began talking somehow about lion tamers, and he recalled that once at a fair he had seen a man wrestling with a tiger, rolling over and over with it all down the hill. The boys, who rarely heard Swamiji speak anything about philosophy, were surprised. Anything but philosophy were surprised. They were delighted, city kids taken to the country by their guru and having a good time. Do you want me to stop here?
Yes, Mataji, thank you.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. What beautiful reading it is. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet Shrinvatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanam Hridiyantasto hi abhadrani Vidunoti Sruhit Satam Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtikir. So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 25, verse number 56. Evam karmashu samsakta kamatma vanchito buddha Mahishi yad yad ihita tat tat evan vavartata evam karmashu samsaktah kamatma vanchito buddha mahishi yad yad ihita tat tat evan varvartata evam karmasu samsaktah kamatma vanchito buddha mahishi yad yad iheta tat tad evana vartata. Are there any volunteers who would like to recite this verse?
Hare Krishna Mataji, I am trying.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Evam karmashu samshaktah kamatma vanchito buddha maishi yajjat heta tat evanna vartata. Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Evam karmashu samshaktah kamatma bunchita buddha mohishi yad yati heto tattadivanyavavartata. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Anyone else? Okay. Then we can take synonym translation and purport. By His divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Evam, thus, karmasu, in fruitive activities, samsaktaha, being too much attached, kama atma, lusty, vanchitaha, cheated, abuddhaha, less intelligent, mahishi, the queen, yat, whatsoever, iheta, she would desire, tat, all of that, eva, certainly, anvavartata, he followed. Translation: being thus entangled in different types of mental concoction and engaged in fruitive activities, King Puranjana came completely under the control of material intelligence and was thus cheated. Indeed, he used to fulfill all the desires of his wife, the queen. Purport: when a living entity is in such bewilderment and he is under the control of his wife or material intelligence, he has to satisfy the intelligence of his so-called wife and act exactly according to her dictates. Various Shastras advise that for material convenience, one should keep his wife always satisfied by giving her ornaments and by following her instructions. In this way, there will be no trouble in family life. Therefore, for one's own social benefit, one is advised to keep his wife satisfied. In this way, when one becomes the servant of his wife, he must act accordingly to the desires of his wife. Thus, one becomes more and more entangled. In Bengal, it is said that if one becomes an obedient servant of his wife, he loses all reputation. However, the difficulty is that unless one becomes an obedient servant of his wife, a most obedient servant of his wife, family life becomes disturbed. In the Western countries, this disturbance gives rise to the divorce law. And in Eastern countries like India, there is separation. Now, this disturbance is confirmed by the new introduction of the divorce law in India. Within the heart, the mind is acting, thinking, feeling, willing, and falling under the control of one's wife is the same as falling under the control of material intelligence. Thus, one begets children by his wife and becomes entangled in so many activities under the control of mental concoction. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bir Krishnadas Goswami Niti Namine Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Srila Gurudev ki Jai. So this verse is basically from Canto 4 of Canto 4 is the creation of the fourth order, and chapter number 25 is talking about different aspects and how it's the description of the characteristics of King Puranjana. So this verse, we have been discussing about Narada Muni's mercy on Prachina Parishat, and then Narada narrates the story of Puranjana. And this is an old story, it's an allegory, and it is an allegorical presentation because a person who is engaged in the material activities wants to hear stories of material activities. And what is happening here, that there are Prachina Bharishats they have requested, he's requested to Narada to instruct him in knowledge. So, because Narada Muni wants
Akaya Sankaraya Namaha. Akaya Sankaraya Namaha.
Narada Muni wants to make Prachina Bharhi detached from the fruitive activities by the power of his yoga. Narada Muni is showing him the sacrificial animals that are being killed and they're waiting for the justice. So he starts talking about the story of King Puranjana, telling him the story of King Puranjana, who traveled all over the world to find suitable place to live for fulfilling his material desires for sense gratification. But he could not find a place of his liking, and therefore, in the beginning of these verses, or in the beginning of this chapter, he was getting more and more frustrated, morose and disappointed at not being able to find that particular place for fulfilling his desires for his sense satisfaction. Then he travels, and the living entity. The point here is the living entity cannot be happy in any form of life or in any planet in the material world. This point tells us that Puranjana's frustration is the frustration that we all face every time when we go ahead when we are very much interested in the material satisfaction or material sense gratification. So then he enters the city. While wandering, he sees on the southern side of the Himalayas, which is Bharatvarsha, the city of 9 gates, and he enters there he thinks that there is a lot of auspicious facilities there. Auspicious facilities means all his desires, where he wants to fulfill all these things, is possible, and it will happen. So there are different aspects of the city, of walls, parks, towers, etc., assembly house, street crossings, and he sees a beautiful woman who is the queen of that place, whose name is Puranjini. So now Puranjini has arrived on her own with 10 servants who have hundreds of wives, and is protected by the five-hooded snake, and beautiful and young. She is also appearing anxious to fulfill her desire to find a suitable husband. She's beautifully decorated face, beautiful nose, beautiful teeth, beautiful forehead, beautiful ears with dazzling earrings. And she's a little dark in complexion, but she's dressed in yellow sari, gold belt. Everything about her is very beautiful. And because she's beautiful, obviously, King Puranjana gets attracted, and this beautiful woman becomes King Puranjana's wife. Then he becomes the king of that place. By certain questioning, though. And then as Puranjana and Puranjani starts living, he's basically captivated by his wife. So this verse talks about being thus entangled in different types of material concoction and engaged in fruitive activities. King Puranjana came completely under the control of material intelligence and was thus cheated. Indeed, he used to fulfill all the desires of his wife, the queen. Now, this is quite an interesting verse, actually. This is also the climax of the soul's bewilderment. And in this story, the King Puranjana, we are trying to understand the core of material life. And the core of material life is to come completely under the control of material intelligence. and thus cheated. We are cheated by the material intelligence. And being cheated by the material intelligence, we become bewildered because this intelligence is controlled by material desires. Now, who is the queen here? The way Lord has manifested here, the situation of man and woman who gets attracted and wants to satisfy the sense gratification, um, we see that material entanglement is something that is created out of mental concoction. Now, from the transcendental point of view, this is a punishment. So, from transcendental point of view, this is the punishment not for the body but for the soul, uh, because the soul is under the clutches of material intelligence. So, this material intelligence is, I was listening to His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj's class yesterday, and first I would like to take some of the points that he actually mentioned. So he gave an understanding that the story of Puranjana is a conditioned soul. And there are two types of souls, liberated soul and conditioned soul. So the liberated soul basically surrenders to Krishna, and the conditioned soul um, does not surrender. So one who does not surrender wants to be independent. And because he's acting as an independent soul, he becomes, the result is he comes under the influence of material energy, because he can't really escape that. He can't really have his clear, complete independence of enjoying the material world without the interference of guna karma. So the guna and karma will bind him, because that's the law. Um, So while he's exercising his guna karma, he is acting under the modes of material nature. He's in goodness. In goodness, he enjoys. In passion, he suffers. And in ignorance, he becomes unconscious or bewildered, or being intoxicated, everything hazed and no interest except eating and sleeping. So he becomes intoxicated like animals, because they don't have any real intelligence. So all living entities are entangled or subjected to this material energy. So being Puranjana, being a conditioned soul, he wants to act independently. And here acting independently means coming completely, the result is coming completely under the control of material intelligence. Now, what is material intelligence? In the mode of goodness, being obedient basically means um, mode of goodness is still good because it's near spiritual practices. So mode of goodness is like being obedient, and it's nearly spiritual. Because that's happening in mode of goodness, things are happening for the benefit of oneself and for the benefit of others. But mode of passion is independent, and the result of too much independence is surely suffering. And because there is suffering, there is punishment, there is pain. So because everyone wants to enjoy the material energy, this is an unsatiation of the enjoyment. The more we enjoy, the more we suffer, and the heavier the punishment becomes. So we can take an example of how our lives today are. The more we want, there's this huge consumerism and excessive use of products where basically it won't last, and you can't even repair it, and there is always something new available. Plus, our lives are never satisfied. We are in this position, we want to be in a higher position, and there's this cycle of wanting more and suffering more, wanting more and suffering more. So this keeps going on and on and on. So the more we want to enjoy, the more one experiences punishment. What I'll do, I'll stop sharing from here. So King Puranjana's story gives us a very clear understanding of what a conditioned soul is. Now, a man who gets attracted to a woman in material nature, that material intelligence is that of that material intel. Where's my book? That material intelligence is that of wife, the queen, who King Puranjana is just following and is after that. So it says when a living entity in such is in such bewilderment that he's under the control of his wife or material intelligence. So Srila Prabhupada mentions that the material intelligence is the wife. The queen of King Puranjani is his material intelligence. And there are expansions of material intelligence like the wife, the children. And this material intelligence makes him to think that he's the king. Also makes him to think that he's the king of the material nature. Like all of us have this, we are the bosses and master of our own world. So this thinking actually puts us into the distancing of from Krishna, because we start thinking ourselves as the masters. Now, even if we are not the masters today, we want to become the masters in the future. So this arrangement is also created or designed by the material energy. When the living entity is in such bewilderment, why is he bewildered? Because he's under the control of material intelligence and he's just cheated. So this cheating is bewilderment. Materially, he can get everything and anything, but with money or with whatever material one can get. But the spiritual need basically is the love of God or the love for each other. We can't get love, which in the purest form, in the material context. So this is the jiva's need. So basically, the role of jiva, this example or analogy can be taken as that this jiva who's conditioned is enjoying the company of his wife, material intelligence, and he serves the wife, and we see that this jiva is serving the material intelligence. Material intelligence is enjoying and exploiting the jiva. Therefore, in the purport here, Srila Prabhupada says, one should keep his wife always satisfied by giving her ornaments and by following her instructions. Now, this verse does not mean that he is disturbed by the husband-wife relationships. This also does not mean that one must keep each other really unhappy. What it means here is an analogy of how a jiva, be it a man or a woman, is enjoying the company in terms of material intelligence, not spiritual intelligence. So when I was reading this verse first, I was like a little bit confused as to why Srila Prabhupada is saying one should keep his wife always satisfied by giving her ornaments. And it seemed to me very superficial about this fact that, oh, husband-wife family relationships are not going to be good if... but no, it's not talking about family relationships as such, the material world. It's about Krishna conscious family relationships above than the material family relationships. So the material family relationships come as Jiva, like Graham Medi, completely enjoying the company of his wife, his children, his assets, his everything that is material, and he's suffering, and he's also using his material intelligence. And because the children are representing different expansions of the intelligence, they work in different ways, and then according to one particular interest, one may get what you want. And so this material intelligence, the expansion, the material intelligence, which is the wife, the expansion, which is the children and their servants, and all the senses with mind, serving with mind along with all the senses, keeps the jiva in the material world entangled. And because the mind is creating so much fabrication of material concoctions, it is being fabricated with and that's the reason why we experience happiness and sadness, that there's duality in our lives. So because we need comforts, so hot, cold, sadness, frustration, happiness, or satisfaction, frustration. So this whole process is really bewildering. Now, soul, this is for the soul in the bodily concept of life, the jiva in bodily concept of life. And when we connect it to how Narada Muni wants, Narada Muni wanted King Prachina. I can't pronounce his name. Prachina Barhishat. So because if we have material intelligence all the time, it's very difficult to go to spiritual intelligence. And because we will be entangled in the material intelligence of more and more and more satisfaction towards our material desires, of which that thinking, feeling, facilities of like what it is. Now, this disturbance is confirmed by the new introduction. Within the heart, the mind is acting, thinking, feeling, and willing, and falling under the control of one's wife is the same as falling under the control of material intelligence. So what is happening within the heart? We create a desire, and mind acts according to the desire by thinking, feeling, and willing. And then the more stronger the desires come, this mind starts facilitating them by the senses. And that is where the mental concoction is the product of wanting more and more and more. So fulfilling material desires and finding satisfaction in that is equal to mental concoction, because you want to fulfill material desires and you want to be satisfied in that. But let's reflect in our lives, like how many things are we satisfied about, and we have stopped there. Basically, we create desire, we want to achieve it. Then after that, the desire is gone and the satisfaction is also gone. And the new thing comes. Then the more we want to satisfy our senses, the more active it becomes. So whenever we want to get happiness from the material or mental concoction point of view, or the conditioned point of view, or basically from bodily platform, that happiness is not the real happiness. The happiness is really different from the what actually the soul's happiness is dependent on. So it's the bewilderment of the soul. We don't even know that our souls are bewildered. We keep going without even considering that our souls are bewildered. So it is up to that jiva who decides and works towards understanding the true position of himself. And then he releases himself from the clutches of these material intelligence and material concoction. That doesn't mean that he leaves his wife, he leaves his children, and He just goes away. If his material intelligence is still the same, he will have another go at everything. So these material intelligence and material concoction, if these are not separated and transformed to spiritual intelligence and knowing the real position of the me inside, the jiva, whose needs are going to be satisfied by the real knowledge. And who gives the real knowledge? This transcendental knowledge is available to us. And the real knowledge, Krishna in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, he explains from, where are you? In chapter 2, from verses 52. Yeah, from 52. Can everyone see my screen? So, when your intelligence is passed out of the dense forest of delusion, you shall become indifferent to all that has been heard and all that is to be heard. When your mind is no longer disturbed by the flowery language of the Vedas, and when it remains fixed in the trance of self-realization, then you will have attained the divine consciousness. Divine consciousness versus material concoction. This is the fight of Jiva. Arjuna said, "O Krishna, what are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? How does he speak? What is his language? How does he sit? And how does he walk?" The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "O Partha, when a man gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification, which arise from mental concoction, and when his mind, thus purified, finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. One who is not disturbed in mind, even amidst the threefold miseries, or elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called a sage of steady mind." So it's amazing. It's so interesting that Krishna here himself says, who is a person of steady mind? The jiva, the conditioned soul right now, but working towards liberation. That liberation does not come for us conditioned soul like that. Had we been totally liberated souls, we would not have been suffering, or we would not have been having the desires to satisfy our material desires. But because we are we are in this part of the material world where it's very difficult not to eat, not to sleep, so we are bound by guna karma. But Krishna, he clearly gives us this instruction that as long as we are Krishna conscious, and as long as our expansions or our families or our society or the whole world at large becomes God conscious, that desire to reach from conditioned to liberated is a journey which all conditioned souls have to perform. Because in conditioned soul situation, the soul will always keep getting frustration as the result. So in order to avoid that frustration, we Krishna, in that spiritual intelligence, Krishna actually sees the desire that is inside us to be receiving spiritual intelligence. And then the role of a Vaishnava and the association of devotees come. Only a Vaishnava can change and give us the ticket to that process of changing from a conditioned soul to a liberated soul. This journey is done under the shelter of a Vaishnava. So thus one begets, so within the heart, the mind is acting, thinking, feeling, and willing, and falling under the control of one's wife is the same as falling under the control of material intelligence. Thus one begets children by his wife and becomes entangled in so many activities under the control of mental concoction. So this verse completely tells us about Srila Prabhupada is not saying anything related to the family life or against anything against family lives or anything, but what he is mentioning here is even the families, the whole families become God conscious, Krishna conscious, and in that process from conditioned state to liberated state, he needs to start the journey from mental concoction to spiritual transcendental knowledge by the help of a Vaishnava. And here, Prachina Bharishat is really lucky, really fortunate that that Narada Muni is telling him this story. So like this, we also have various Vaishnavas who we can follow and get information from them about the real knowledge, real constitutional place, where are the soul, the jiva, this king Puranjana and Puranjini. We all are King Puranjanas if we are in the conditioned state, and we are all attracted by Puranjini. So this is basically the jiva's journey in the material world of bewilderment, of entanglement, because his only focus, when the jiva's only focus becomes material sense gratification, then the more the desires are, the more entanglement comes. So with this, I like to take a halt here. If there's anything anyone wants to add or any other comments or anything, please feel free. I don't know what the time is. Okay, yeah. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Oops.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandot Pranam.
Hare Krishna
Thank you,
Prabhuji.
Mataji, for bringing out nicely the content of this verse, and particularly the difference between a spiritual intelligence and the material intelligence. Because the soul, when it is encompassed with the material body, thinks that it is material. So in this way, it starts thinking materially and failing to understand the uh, real situation. That may say the soul, that is, it is eternal soul, but when it gets encompassed, it thinks that it is the material body, and from where the material intelligence comes. And material intelligence, as Prabhupada has rightly told, is an inferior situation. And as a human being, we have to get above it, because human life has been provided with superior intelligence to understand the difference between spiritual intelligence and material intelligence. Unfortunately, no other living being other than human being has this ability. So we have to, in this life, it is an opportunity, as we have pointed out. In this human form of life, we get the opportunity that our desire to enjoy our senses, that has given us this material life. So if we do that, and if we follow material life, we remain entangled in this material sense gratification. And in this way, the process of sense gratification continues. We get more and more entangled, and we cannot get out of the circle of birth and death, and which is an opportunity in this human life to get out of it. So it is a dual situation. Either we cross over that, understanding that this life is an opportunity for us, or we by default remain in the material life and continues to remain in the cycle of birth and death. So this human life is therefore an opportunity. We should take advantage of that. And Narad Muni is trying the same thing, pointing out to Puranjan that we should get rid of it, this material life. And the material desire will be there, but when we overcome its spiritual intelligence, we overcome that. And regarding the other things you have told about Griho, maybe Prabhupada has also explained in particular, if I remember, it is in Canto 2 and chapter 1 of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is mentioned, Prabhupada has told in the purport that there are two items he has told, Griho Medi and the Grihastha. Grihasthas follow the Varnashrama Dharma. They know the purpose of life and they utilize it for the service of the Lord. And in this way, they can overcome, although they remain in a household, they overcome the material influence and ultimately can go back to Godhead by doing their activities according to Varnashrama Dharma. But Griho Medis cannot understand that and they remain in the cycle of birth and death. So we have to be, although we are Grihastha, and we have to understand the purpose and in this way get rid of the cycle of birth and death. And this is what Narad Muni is trying to convince Puranjan about that. Thank you for bringing out this contents nicely. Thank you once again, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. It was so beautifully added and explained so nicely. Thank you so much. Yes, accordingly, Grahamedis, even in this chapter, initial verses, verse number 6 says, ones whose intelligence is fixed in the false occupation. I'll just bring that up. Yeah, those who are interested only in a so-called beautiful life, namely remaining as a householder, entangled by sons and a wife and searching after wealth, think that such things are life's ultimate goal. Such people simply wander in different types of bodies throughout this material existence without finding out the ultimate goal of life, which is quite an interesting thing because here Prachina Barhishat actually requests this to Narada. That because I'm stuck in this process of karma and very much attracted to karma yoga. I basically don't know the ultimate goal of life. So please instruct me in this knowledge, which is very interesting. Anything else? Okay, then can we stop here?
It appears, Mataji, yes, there is no other person to make a comment. So
Yeah.
the class is
Let's
concluded.
finish this.
Thank
then.
you for this nice class. Vancha
तनुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय।
ग्रेट राधा पद्मा माता जी
की जय। प्रभुपाद की
Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
गौर प्रेमानंदे
Hare Krishna. Have a wonderful conscious day. Hare Krishna.
थैंक यू माता जी हरे कृष्ण।